booktube. It's Lindsay and Winnie. She's staring out the window. It's a nice rainy day, and so I love hearing the rain. But I closed the window so I can film a video and not be distracted by the nice sounds. So I'm here to do a tag. This is the 2 books, 1 stone tag, and it was created by Sean the Book Maniac, and I was tagged by Lacey from Turn the Page. And this is all about numbers, like numbers of 2. So the first question is second to last book that I've read, and that would be Shem Creek by Dorothea Benton Frank. This is a Low Country Tale, book 4 in that series. And this is all about a woman who's from the South originally, but she moved up to the North and she created a life with, she has children and she's married, and then all of a sudden she gets divorced. And so she decides to go back to like the small town, slower pace of life, and, start a refresher with, the teenage daughters, trying to go back to school and not be with riffraff of a big city, which I like that part. It was okay. But I didn't like the story just because I didn't realize this was kind of like a mystery, because there's a bad guy in here, which I thought was completely realistic. The plot line with that and the person they chose as a bad guy and the reasons why was completely unbelievable. I don't want to spoil it at all if you want to read this book. But I read this author a lot as a kid, and so I think my memories of her have like shifted as an adult. But I know she has a new book coming out. I think Queen Bee is what it was called. So I might read that one. But this one just, it didn't really do it for me. So let's see. Number 2, second book from the top of your TBR, and I physically own 4 books, so I didn't want to go for those. So I decided to go with books on my Goodreads page, like the second to last book that I added to that TBR is The Fall of Berlin, 1945 by Anthony Beevor. And this is a book I recently saw on Steve Donahue's channel, which I think this book is going to be fascinating because it's not just like a World War II book, but it's like the specific year 1945 for Berlin, because the consequences that Germany and Berlin, the city, had, with the Nazis, with the war ending, and what's going on in the city, the division that's happening, which is all so fascinating for me. So yeah, that's the book I recently added. So let's see, question 3, 2 2-star reads. For me personally, I've stopped reading on Goodreads for the last year or 2, just because I didn't feel like it was meaningful. I think if you write a review, then that shows context, that shows reasons why you're liking or disliking a book. But so yeah, I didn't really like that the system that they have in place, and so I haven't done that. But I decided to look back on when I was giving reviews, the 2 stars that were from that. And this one is one I saw make its rounds quite a bit on BookTube, and so that's what made me decide to pick it up. It's My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. And I feel like this is kind of a divisive book. People seem to either love or hate it. And this is a story about 2 friends in Italy in the 1950s, and I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the story. Mainly just the characters. I did not like them. so yeah, I didn't continue on with this series. And then the other one's another book in a series. This is the Harry Potter book 8, which was billed as book 8. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which was a play, part 1 and part 2. And it has J.K. Rowling's name on it, but it was written by John Tiffany and Jack Thorne. And I decided to pick this book up because, I had, like everyone else, I'd read this series as a kid. And I know she's done some spin-offs with the movies, and she has some short stories and whatnot. But this was actually book 8, so I was like, it piqued my interest. But yeah, the story didn't feel authentic at all to the characters, the main characters, the trio, Ron, Hermione, and Harry. They didn't feel the same. They weren't doing the same things. They weren't talking the same way or anything as they were in the other, the 7-book series. And I know, it's part of it growing up. They're getting older. They're adults now in this series, in this book. But the stuff they were doing was not pairing right with what we know from the, as seeing them grow up, and just the magic system it didn't feel right. There was a lot of things that were happening that they could do in this book that the magic in place in the series, it wasn't possible in that series. And then also the story itself, the plot line, and it was just bizarre. So I think maybe it's because, it wasn't written by J.K. Rowling, but has her name on it. So I'm sure, she read it. She had some editing input on this, and yeah. I wouldn't recommend it if you haven't read it. I just think a lot of people don't like this book, so I'm not in the minority there. Okay, so question 4. 2 great books by the same author. And I'm going to go with Bruce Catton. I've read 3 or 4 of his books, and I've liked every single one of them. He mainly focuses on the Civil War, and he's really good at, instead of like giving you the broad outline of what happened in the Civil War, he's really good at giving you really good details on, what's battle, what's this character doing throughout the whole thing, or like how are they creating a diversion, or how it's just wonderful. Like he really gives you a strong sense of all of their personalities, and yeah, it's just phenomenal writing. So this one is Glory Road, the second book in the Army of the Potomac series, and then I'm also selecting the Army of the Potomac book 3, A Stillness at Appomattox, and this one won the Pulitzer Prize, I believe, and all of his books have been phenomenal. There's one I really want to get to, which is Hallowed Ground, which is just the Union side of the story. And all of his books tend to, give you the Union and Confederate, but most of them, they lean towards the Union side of things. But yeah, he's a wonderful writer. Let's see, number 5. 2 bails, or 2 books you wish you bailed on, or 2 books that you hated. And I decided to go with 2 books that I bailed on. One second, my cat's gonna jump. Okay, she didn't knock over the camera. Good. And I don't tend to DNF books just because, I go through them pretty quickly, and or it's that, I'll read like 50 or 100 pages, and if I know I don't like it, I won't continue on, but I will still give it another chance if I, happen to see a person on BookTube talk about it, like, spark my interest again. Let me give it a second try. I'm always willing to give books another chance. But these 2 were ones that I've DNF'd in the last year or so. And the first one is Demigods by Eliza Robertson. And this book is about a young family who, they're at a beach, and it's about a young girl who is influenced heavily by a bully of a neighbor. And I think it says her cousin. And it's like very sexual or incestuous in a way, because even though they're children, he's getting her to do things that are quite bad. And so yeah, it wasn't a comfortable read for me. It didn't sit easily, and I did not like the characters and their actions. It left me kind of queasy. So there's that one. And then the other book that I've DNF'd is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. It's the first book in a series. And I feel like I'm not in the minority with this one either, because it seems like a very divisive book. Like, people either love or hate it, it seems. And for this one, the reason I didn't continue on with this is because I didn't like the story. I couldn't connect with the characters. I didn't like the characters. The story jumped around a lot, and I feel like he was trying to do a lot in one book. So yeah, there's that one. So question 6, 2 favorite reads so far this year. And I hate these kind of questions because I have a hard time picking favorites. But these are 2 that I've really enjoyed this year. And the first one is the Babysitter's Club, Christie's Great Idea. I chose to select this one because I'm really liking and enjoying this series so far. I've read 2 of them so far, and I have the third one coming to me soon from the library. So I'm so happy to find this series. I didn't read it as a kid myself, but I've always heard about it. I've seen it in stores, and I just happened to pick it up. And yeah, I'm delighted to have a huge backlog of books to read in this series. And the other one I'm choosing as a favorite is one that's really stuck with me since I read it. And I like it because it focuses on people that I may not have learned about otherwise. And this is The Accidental Presidents by Jared Cohen. And this is all about the 8 presidents who were assassinated or who died in office, and their policies, and then the people who took over for them, what they implemented, and how our history would have changed if it went this way or this way with the president or the vice president. And yeah, it was just fascinating. Or the attempts on presidents' lives, and would that have how that would have changed our history. And so yeah, it really focuses a lot on the vice presidents who take over, And yeah, it was fascinating book. So let's see. Question 7 is 2 new favorite booktubers. And so I'm just going to say Meghan Hanet. I found her channel through the Betsy Tacy series. That's a read along that's happening this year. And so yeah, I really love his books. And yeah, I found her channel through that. And the other person is Alan Morton. And I found him through someone's tag. They had tagged him. And so he's an older gentleman, and so it's an interesting perspective compared to a lot of us younger booktubers. So I will leave a link in the description below to their 2 channels. And let's see, where am I at? Let's see, question 8, a book I've read twice, and for this, it's Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. I read him the first time in school, like most people, and I didn't like it that much. I think it's like when you're forced to read a book, even though I was a reader, I didn't like it that much. And this, here's the cover, if you need a cover for Of Mice and Men. But yeah, I didn't like it that much. And then I decided to pick it up, I think 2 years ago, because I had read East of Eden. And so I was like, oh, I like this book, so I want to read more of him. And so I decided, since Of Mice and Men is a pretty slim book compared to East of Eden, I was like, oh, I can give it an hour. Let me just try it again. And I really enjoyed it. I got a lot more out of it as an adult, when I pick it up of my own free will. So yeah, that's the one I chose to do from book I read twice. And see, question 9, 2 quotes from recently read books. And I have my Kindle here to look up some of the books I recently read. Let me just pull it up. The first one I'm going to quote is from Stargirl by Spinelli that I recently read. And let me just find where the quote is. Sorry, one moment. Let's see. I should have had it saved on here, but on the Kindle. Let's see. Okay, here's the quote. It's the quote about Stargirl. She was elusive. She was today. She was tomorrow. She was the faintest scent of a cactus flower. The flitting shadow of an elf owl. We did not know what to make of her. In our own minds, we tried to pin her down to a corkboard like a butterfly, but the pin merely went through, and away she flew. And this is all about, a girl who's going to school, and she's been homeschooled, she has her own very strong personality, whereas everyone else at this high school, they're all like conforming and, following, they're all sheep, and so she's very different, and she doesn't change herself just because she starts going to the school. And so yeah, this quote really showcases how she's willing to be different. And then the other quote is from Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. And this is a therapist who's in therapy, who's talking about, and she's writing a book about therapy. And so this quote, let's see, let me go back. Sorry for the delay. Okay, here's the quote. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So this is all, kind of like, her choices, carry us through life, and how choices can be scary. She goes, it's a whole, kind of like, the book's also talking about, of course, psychology. And, what's going on through our minds, with anxiety or depression, or even happiness and joy, how, that can alter or put restraints on our mind. So yeah, that's the 2 books I decided to go with. And so the last question is, tag a number of booktubers that are divisible by 2. So it can be 2, 4, 6, 8. So I decided to go with 2 and keep it simple. And I decided to go with Meghan Hanet and Ross from A Journey Through Books. And I will leave a link, of course, in the description below to their 2 channels as well. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing this tag. And it's kind of like putting math in with reading, which is, a little bit different. It was a lot of fun to dig in and find these answers. So yeah, thanks. See you soon, BookTube.